What up, everybody? Now that Power Origins is currently filming in New York City, and we also know that there's another Power spinoff, Power Legacy, coming on the current Power timeline after Force is finished. Another question remains: will there be an additional Power Book spinoff announced at the conclusion of Power Book Force Season 3? Similar to how there was 3 spinoffs that came after OG Power, Ghost, Force, and Raising Kanan. And in an article that was released with the Rap.com in May, Starz CEO Jeffrey Hirsch was asked the question what the future of the Power franchise looked like, and do they have more spinoffs in the works. After talking about Power Origins and what it was going to be about, he went on to say that they have another one that they haven't announced yet that's really exciting that they'll announce soon. And we now know that he was talking about Power Legacy, which was announced that it's currently in the writer's room a couple months after this article came out. So after he hinted at Power Legacy, he said, but there's 2 more stories coming at least talking about Origins and Legacy, and there may be more. So that franchise will continue to grow. So this could have been potentially hinting in the 3rd phase of the Power universe. We could potentially see more than just Power Legacy and Origins spin-offs, that there could be additional spin-offs that are also in the works. And with that said, in another article with Deadline, Hirsch also said that Starz has over 50 original series that are currently in development. So we have to believe that out of 50 shows currently in development, that more than 2 of those 50 have to be Power spinoffs. 50 Cent also said in a recent interview that he also has 40 shows in development across 12 different networks. So because Starz is the network he works with the most, this is also an indication that there's more Power spinoffs in the works coming other than just Legacy and Origins. 50 Cent also said in a post when it was announced that Season 3 of Force would be its final season that the Power universe was expanding. Joseph Sikora also confirmed that all the talks around the Power universe with Starz has been about expansion in an interview with The Breakfast Club. So we know that Power Origins will be based out of New York, and I also talked about in another video I made a couple weeks ago that Joseph Sikora also hinted in that interview with The Breakfast Club that Legacy was going to be in New York as well. This is similar to how both Ghost and Raising Kanan were based out of New York, while the 3rd spinoff Force was out of Chicago. So the question is, if there is a 3rd spinoff in this phase of the Power universe in a different city, what city would it be? And I believe that there's been hints and clues in both Book 2 and now in Force that we could potentially see a spinoff that's on the same timeline as Power Legacy that's based in Atlanta. Keeping in mind that Kane Tejada has left New York and is in the run, and we don't know what city he's currently in. But with that said, what we do know about Kane in this whole situation is that he does have family in Atlanta. His Aunt Janet, who was introduced in Season 4 Book 2, lives in Atlanta, as well as Kane's cousins. And we got to believe that Janet and her sons weren't introduced to the storyline for no reason. Either though, if they were planning on doing something in Atlanta with these characters, Little Dirk being in jail right now kind of hinders that, to where they would have to either write him off until the situation is resolved or recast the character with a different actor, similar to how they did the Theo Rollins character in Power Book 2. So it definitely makes sense if Kane ended up trying to start over in Atlanta with the money that Effie gave him. Also keep in mind in Season 3 of Ghost that Diana Tejada told Monet that she wanted to move to Atlanta and go to Spelman to get a fresh start. And now that there's nothing left for Diana in New York, and since she's quit Stansfield, she might also end up going to live in Atlanta, especially if Kane is already living there. Now, in regards to Spelman College and how this connects to D-Mac and how he could also end up in Atlanta. In episode 2, when D-Mac bought his sports bike and went to talk to Genesis, he gifted her with a book that had her name on it and mentioned that she's going to go attend college at none other than Spelman University. So as D-Mac was 16 when the series started, this lets us know that if he was in school, he'd likely be a senior about to graduate or have just finished graduating at this point on the timeline. And we also know from the season 3 trailer that D-Mac and Genesis are going to end up getting into a relationship because the fact it shows the clip of D-Mac at the funeral and Genesis is who's with him. Now with Genesis getting out of Chicago to move to Atlanta to go to Spelman, where does this leave D-Mac in their relationship when she does this? D-Mac could potentially stay back in the streets of Chicago like Ghost did when Angela went to Cho. Or he could potentially move to Atlanta to start over there when Genesis goes to school. With everything that D-Mac has going on in Chicago, he's bringing a lot of heat on himself right now. So he might end up needing to leave Chicago, similar to how Kane was forced to leave New York because he was a fugitive. So things are hot in Chicago for D-Mac at the end of the series, and Genesis is going off to Spelman, and they're in a relationship. We might also see D-Mac ending up in Atlanta. So this could potentially have 7 characters that we know from the Power universe living in Atlanta at the conclusion of Power Book Force. Kane, Diana, D-Mac, Genesis, Janet, and her 3 sons. In addition to those 7 characters that I just named, we also have to keep in mind that at the end of Book 2, Tariq moved Tasha out of Witsec and set her up to live real comfortable, but told her that it wasn't going to be in New York. So we know that Tasha is also living in a new city alongside Yaz and Estelle. So they could also potentially be living in Atlanta. So that makes a total of 10 Power characters who we already know that could be all living in Atlanta during the timeline of Power Legacy. So because of that, if there's going to be a spinoff that runs concurrent with Power Legacy, similar to how Ghost and Force ran on the same timeline, I think this spinoff would be based out of Atlanta. And because it's just not Tommy who's trying to lay low from New York and Chicago, and it's 10 characters who we've already been introduced to, the potential for crossovers would be a lot more. Because we could always have Tariq showing up in Atlanta to visit his family, as well as Tommy going to Atlanta to check on D-Mac. And we could also see Drew Tejada making an appearance in this spinoff, coming from Paris to visit Kane and Diana, as well as his aunt and his cousins. So in this spinoff, Kane and D-Mac would be outsiders trying to build something in Atlanta while facing opposition from the local gangs and dealers before potentially uniting and working together. So there you have it. All roads could potentially be leading to Atlanta, Georgia, if there is in fact gonna be a third Power spinoff in addition to Origins and Legacy. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.